Hello students. Today we are going to comment on the poem Breakfast written by Jacques Prévert. I think you know this poem has been prescribed for O-level examination, literature. You can see the poet Jacques Prévert who composed this poem. First of all, we must know something about this prominent personality. Jack Prévert was born in 1970 and he lived for 77 years. And in 1977, he died. You can see his grave. You can see his grave once again. Jacques Prévert, shall we learn something about this specific poet? He is a great French poet and a screenwriter. Also, he's a script writer. That means he wrote scripts for producing films and movies. And also he joined the military service in France. That was his ambition to be in the French army. And during this period, I think he lived for 77 years and he was involved in both these battlefields sometimes, World War One and World War Two. You can see World War One occurred in 1914 and it was there till 1918, 4 years. And also for the second time, World War II began in 1939 and it prevailed for 6 years. This particular person was there at the battlefield during this periods, but we have doubts whether he could have been there in World War battlefield. At that time, he was very young, but we know in 1939, he was 39 years old. Sometimes by this time, he might have been involved in this battlefield. And when a person is in the battlefield, he feels isolated, frustrated, disappointed. Sometimes this particular person might have this kind of experience. As we discussed earlier, he was born in 1900. And, you know, unfortunately in 1977, he died of lung cancer. And also this specific personality had that military mentality. That means he was working there as a soldier. With that experience, I think he might have composed this poem. Away from home, wife, children. That indicates this person had to be away from home. He was not with his wife and children as he had to be there in the battlefield. They were not allowed to come home during that war period. Sometimes this might have affected his creativity as well. You can see when a person is alone, usually he gets addicted to liquor or smoking. Now, he became a heavy smoker as you see in this picture. Jacques Prévert was a heavy smoker. And when we discuss the poem, you come to know the way he smokes there in the poem. Heavy smoker, we discussed that. Experience at the battlefield. He got this experience in the battlefield. as I mentioned earlier, they had no freedom to come home to be with wife and children. Therefore, this might have affected him. That's why we say it may be his war mentality or military mentality. Their life was extremely limited to the battlefield. As a result, I explained earlier, he might have got used to smoking, and this poem may be autobiographical. That means his character we find in the poem. We find his character in this poem, autobiographical. You can see in the poem, the poet smokes just to get rid of his frustration and isolation. And you know, he was so famous during that period. A large number of educational institutes bear the name of Jack Prevert. This is one of such institutions. We are now going to start the poem composed by Jacques. He poured the coffee into the cup. He poured the milk into the cup of coffee. He added the sugar to the coffee and milk. He stirred in it. You can see very short sentences, a quick activity. He put coffee into the cup. He put milk into the cup, and later he added sugar, and finally he mixed coffee and milk together and he stirred it, he mixed it. You can see this activity. This is done by himself alone. You can see his isolation, his frustration. He doesn't speak to his wife. He's dead silent there. With the teaspoon, he drank the coffee. He drinks coffee with the teaspoon and put back the cup. You can see he puts it back without speaking to me. Here, me means his wife. He lit a cigarette. You can see his habit in the battlefield. Sometimes he blew some rings. You know, you can make some rings using a smoke. He smokes now. He smokes a cigarette. With the smoke, he flickered the ashes into the ashtray. There's ashtray and it's burning, and ash is put into the ashtray. All these actions seem to be very quick and rapid. Without speaking to me, wife is the narrator. She says, he didn't speak to me. Oh, he doesn't speak to me. Without looking at me, he doesn't look at me. He got up. He gets up. You can, all these things are isolated and frustrated. He put his hat on his head. In the poem, he puts his hat on his head. He puts on his raincoat. It's raining. He went out. He goes out into the rain. Now he's going out. You can see there's no exchange of words between husband and wife. Without a word, without looking at me, he doesn't speak to the wife. He doesn't look at wife. And I took my head in my hands and I wept. The woman can't do anything. She is extremely helpless. She buries her head in her hands and she begins to weep. Now she is crying. I think it's a very beautiful poem. That means a beautiful creation. But this action and mood, they are all really sad. Now, when we go deeper into the poem, The narrator is highly worried by what has happened. Something might have happened, that's why he doesn't speak to his beloved wife. She is looking at him innocently. She thinks sometimes he will speak to me, but he will never. His wife makes no effort to talk to her husband. Also, we realize that she doesn't make any effort, any attempt to talk to her husband. She doesn't want to communicate with him. It's true that he may be frustrated, disappointed, or they may have a problem. That's why this critic says narrator is highly worried by what has happened. Something might have happened. You know about the soldiers. Once they are extremely alone in the battlefield, these people have no freedom to come and be with their family members. These factors may affect them. No one attempts to speak to each other. The poet says, no one speaks. They don't want to speak. So when there's a conflict, when there's a clash between wife and husband, somebody has to speak. Somebody has to begin the communication. But wife too doesn't speak. Sometimes he might have experience with this particular person. He may think if I speak, sometimes he will assault her. Sometimes we don't know because he has that military mentality. It implies that the conflict is very serious and critical. And also, finally, you find there are silent sobbing. You can see how many women in this world are crying alone. They are sobbing alone. They suppress their sorrow, their pain, their agony, their suffering. They don't show this to the world. They suffer alone. There's emptiness at home. When the husband is not happy, wife is silent. If there are children, they are also helpless. So, according to my point of view, it's the husband who should understand this fact. It's his duty. It may be true that he may be in the battlefield, he may be a policeman, he has to do hard work, but when he comes back, when he is with his children and wife, they must be very friendly. There shouldn't be any tension at home. It should be stress free. But unfortunately, when we consider the present society and also all over the world, these things happen. You know, it is reported that in Sri Lanka, 400 divorce cases take place. It's a news only. 400 people are divorced. Sometimes the wife is divorced, sometimes the husband is divorced. And recently it is revealed that during this COVID period, 60% of the uh, family members, so I'm not sorry, not family members, family institution, marriage institution has collapsed. 60% of that. Why? Who should be responsible for this issue? It's the responsibility of the parents, father's responsibility, mother's responsibility. Even the children can get involved in that. When there's a problem between father and mother, they too can get involved. But there are instances where sometimes father is very tough and strict. So you are afraid of speaking to your father. He behaves like an animal sometimes. So this is a very good example for such people, please, especially according to my point of view. Once again, it is the husband who should play the role as the head of the family. Wife is afraid of him, the children are afraid of him. Therefore, I feel we can learn a lot from this poem. It's the duty of the husband to control the family. He has to tolerate all. He must have his own personality. But unfortunately, Even in Sri Lanka today, this problem is there. Even in other countries, the same thing happens. The wife and husband, they are not happy. There's always conflict, clashes, a lack of communication. They don't speak. Therefore, this is what this poet wants to convey to us. You can see. Shall we go to the beginning? And Jacques Prévert tries to convey to the readers that it's the responsibility of the husband to speak to the wife who is very innocent. If you love your wife really, she responds nicely. They are very innocent people. They are very humble, really. So you must know how to deal with these innocent people. There are a few women, but the majority of the women are very helpful. They are very kind hearted. They are innocent. When you treat your wife kindly, with great respect, they will respond in a very positive way. This is the message passed by Jacques Prévert, and we are once again meeting you next week with another poem. This is for O-level examination literature. You are going to sit the examination this December sometimes. I think this may help you a lot. Thank you very much. Good luck.